Welcome to In a Nutshell, the podcast dedicated to all things agricultural consulting. I'm Dylan Brush here with soil genius and ag consultant Bill Brush, and we're delighted to accompany you on this journey where we break down the different aspects of agricultural consulting. In each episode, we'll dive into the realm of agriculture through the eyes of Bill Brush, where consultants like Bill play a vital role in empowering farmers, agribusiness, and agricultural organizations. If you're passionate about agriculture, problem solving, and enjoy a little bit of detective work, this podcast is tailor-made for you.
Hello, this is Bill Brush. After a couple-month hiatus from In a Nutshell, we're back. And today, my topic for today is going to be something near and dear and in the recent news cycle, food safety. And the recent ones you hear about that are all over the news, morning, noon, and night, are originally started with the iceberg lettuce. And it's really funny the way this, not funny in a hilarious way, but funny and weird the way that they go through the cycle. People got sick from eating something. They isolate it down to what that something is. And in this case, it was iceberg lettuce. And then with our food tracking, we can do a little bit of work and we can find out the source, and then we can trace it all back. And the traceability that we put on all fruits and vegetables and nuts and anything that you're going to consume, milk, bread, anything you think that you might eat, it's got a great traceability. And this has been developed over the years. So they can find relatively quickly where the source of the problem is and where it's been distributed, so they can halt it, recall it, do whatever they need to do to get it back. But in the case of this iceberg lettuce, one of the things that we found is the first response that consumers have when they see people are getting really sick from it, and in some cases at this, because it was so severe or somebody was compromised, they actually died from eating this iceberg lettuce. And so a lot of people's response was, well, I'm not going to eat any lettuce at all. Just forget it. Not that there was an isolated incident that happened in one spot, but it's all lettuce. So then the other thing that you do beyond that is go, well, I'm just not going to eat salads anymore. Well, that's not realistic, because we already know we're short of the amount of fruits and vegetables we need to consume, and a lot of people get our vegetables through salads. So we tend to be a little bit paranoid when we start seeing anything into our food system. Well, if that wasn't enough, we followed that all with jalapenos. And we take that through, it was fairly isolated into a couple spots, but a lot of people have been out there, I've seen them in news cycles, and also have talked to people, and they go, well, I'm just going to stay away from all Mexican foods for a while. So we tend to take a problem and we get a little bit irrational, and we take it to the nth degree. We can go backwards to previous problems we had in different for different reasons. We had a problem with watermelon several years back ago. It got applied a product, a pesticide that is not labeled for that product, and it had a residual of that pesticide in the watermelons, which you could imagine as it's pulling it up through the water, a lot of moisture in watermelons, and so it was high in that. Well, they found it luckily quickly, removed it all from commerce, so it wasn't available, and they tracked it down and nobody got sick, and it turned out to be a non-issue. The offshoot, though, was for several months, if not years, the watermelon industry was hit so hard that it was difficult to make any money growing watermelons, because everybody still had that scare, even though it was an isolated product in an isolated area. It still carries over to all the food supply. Another one that was closer to me, and I knew a lot more about because I'm a grower and that's almonds. And almonds had a case show up a couple places with salmonella. And historically, when you consume raw almonds, they are raw almonds. They have not been treated or pasteurized or anything else. And the traceability went back to one ranch in one part of the state that applied some sewer sludge to their field for many reasons, primarily the nutrients, etc. Anyway, they showed up. They had salmonella, hadn't tested for it, and they came back. And so the almond industry took a couple corrective steps, and one was to have none of these waste products ever applied to fields again. And that was a good way to do it. And if you did apply any material, particularly of, we could say compost and some other items, you want to incorporate them into your soil so that they are tied up in there and don't end up in the food source. The other step they took was to pasteurize all raw almonds. And we had a lot of pushback from the organic people. Did not want to pasteurize them. They want to keep them whole and not any alteration. But they did the work, found out there's really no change in the almond if you use the form, which is one of the two forms, which is heat pasteurized, which is just a certain amount of temperature for a certain period of time, and it kills that bacteria, or the salmonella, and most other I think almost all other pathogens that might be there. So there was ways to do that. I bring up the organic exclusion because they wanted to exclude things, but as I kind of pointed out earlier, when people hear you have a problem, and they may hear it's salmonella in almonds, they say, well, then I'm just not going to eat almonds. They won't say, oh, these only show up in non-pasteurized organic almonds. All the almond industry is hurt. So we all are in this together. So as the Almond Board of California, we put together the pasteurization steps and put it in so it was enforceable. And then we said, no, it's all almonds. And we've been really good at keeping that clean and not having any incidents since that time. So the thing is, you see so many of these over periods of time. I gave you kind of some specifics, like a one and done, but then I also am talking about things like the lettuce and jalapenos in there. For a while, there was tomato products that were in there, and it goes on and on and on. And so you sit there and you go, I don't remember ever having this much trouble. Okay, so what's causing it? Okay, well, first thing is that we're on a whole different plane of communication. The news cycles 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The internet is buzzing 24 hours, 7 days a week. Everything you do, it gets into your stream of consciousness much, much quicker than it ever did before. So that's one thing. A small problem can look like it's a lot bigger. These were big problems. I'm not going to diminish any of these problems I talked about, but you can have a small one that can be inflated. And so that's going to happen. So we have to redouble our efforts in the ag business, in the processing business, to make sure we never see it hit. But just being honest, we will see more come up. And that's why we look at some of the things that are making more of these issues maybe coming to the forefront. One is the market that we now have for fruits and vegetables. And I call it, you want fresh all the time. You want fresh fruit. You want fresh vegetables. You want fresh, you want really fresh nuts if you can get them. You want them all as current as you can and unaltered as possible. To get that, you've got to come from multiple countries. A lot of shipping is coming, this globalization of the food supply is everywhere. So a lot of things that you'll see, like in the United States here, we'll say that you're looking at November, December, January, February. Those 4 months, we can't grow fruits and vegetables. We can't grow very few vegetables or all the vegetables that people want. So they're going where? South of the equator, basically, to where it's their summertime. So we also get fruits and vegetables fresh from south of the border, all clear down to the tip of, South America, where their climate will sustain those particular crops. I like to, because I work in them, table grapes. They start early down in Chile, and they come up through, not as much to Central America, but into Mexico, which they have a strong agricultural economy. and then they move up to the south end of the state, and then they move up in almost the central part of the state. But by then, everybody's kind of went through the season, and it starts to lull and go away. And a lot of these are stored in cold storage where they have varieties that last for months and months. So we go very little time that you can't find fresh table grapes in the store. And there is no season anymore. So one of the things that leads to more issues is there's less canning. People don't eat canned vegetables or canned fruit. It's an industry that's dying slowly, ever so slowly. There used to be a point where if you wanted fresh peaches, it was a season. Now, it's almost all year long. Apricots. Like I say, name any fruit or vegetable. One that seems to be kind of still seasonal is cherries. And it's cherry season, and that's about the end of it. We have a little longer because of where we grow them in the U.S., but you don't see many coming from out of the U.S. The next thing is, what are we also looking for? We're looking for something fresh. When you can something, they normally have to put some kind of preservative in there, and we're trying to eat as clean and fresh of a product as we can, so they're not as desirable from that standpoint. They may be more safe in terms of disease, but they may have some baggage with those preservatives. The next thing is price. We're always looking for the lowest price, and so when you could get fruits and vegetables from the U.S., it was cheaper coming from Mexico or farther to the south. You're probably going to see them and the markets shift and go to these cheaper products. Another huge change in the market, particularly in vegetables, is convenience. A lot of things you can go to the store and get pre-cut, already sliced, ready to eat, bagged. One of the things that when you do all of these pre-cut, sliced, and you look at them as ready to eat, you're not going to wash them. You don't worry about what's on them. You assume that they are all clean inside that. The other thing is when you put something in a container that's sealed, if it has some kind of bacteria, fungus, or the like, you give it the proper growing conditions, humidity, moisture, and then it can begin to continue to multiply while it's in that bag or whatever. Cold storage or keeping it cold will help to a certain extent because it'll usually need to be a little warmer than that, but as soon as you bring it out, it can start to multiply. So that is another thing that's leading to more problems that we see on a more frequent basis. The next thing that not a lot of people think about is water. And almost everywhere you want to go in the world, there's a shortage of it, and particularly a shortage of clean, safe water. There's a lot of places where there's a lot of rainfall, lots of water running off, lots of flooding, but in those areas you're also getting a lot of what's ever on top of the ground, and that goes into the water. So the water is not necessarily cleaned. So a lot of times with these water shortages, you're going to try to make your water that you have at your location, and so you'll recycle it. You'll wash these vegetables. A lot of them are what we call hydrocooled, which is running a chilled water over the top of them, fresh out of the field to try to get the majority of everything off of them. But you might recycle that. And the more, as water gets short, you try to maybe stretch that recycling or something like that. Nobody really likes the chlorination, but chlorination is part of the answer to solve it. But you can imagine open a bag salad and it smells like a swimming pool. Probably not going to be really appetized or worried about eating that. So there's all these pluses and minuses. But one thing we have to look at is, and I'm going to tell you that in my household, the best thing to do with any raw vegetable, even if it's been bagged, even if it's cut, even if it's sliced, even if it says it's ready to eat, you need to wash it. You need to take water and put through there and get anything, because it's one thing is you're diluting it, you're washing some of it off. They're microscopic, you can't see them, so you can't see them going off, but it will cut down on the numbers if nothing else, make it less likely that you'll get some extreme illness from it. And so when you look at all these things that you're looking at in your fruits and vegetables, some inherently have peels on them. But in the handling of those, you know, take your old favorite banana, something like that, that's got a skin on it, and you think, well, the eating part on the, the inside is fine because it's protected by a peel, and so you pull that off, and as you take that banana out, if it touches and gets in contact with the skin, you could have an issue there. I mean, there's all these little things. I don't want to be a fearmonger, but just think about washing things before you you wash the outside of that banana just before you eat it, or wash it before you take it with you to work or to on the go, or put it in your kid's lunch pail. That gives you another level of safety. Nobody washes watermelons, but that's another thing. You've got every one of these times that you can reduce the amount, the count, whatever. It's going to get you closer to having a lot safer food. So with all that I've talked about, what's a guy to do? Can't stop eating. Everybody will tell you need more fruits and vegetables. So what's my recommendation? Well, you always, if you can, wash all your fruits and vegetables. And yet make a choice. Do I want to buy prepackaged? Or if I do want to do that, know that I should probably wash them before I eat them. Also, I know a lot of people said, I didn't know there was a problem. So pay attention to all of these food alerts. They're frequent and often. And so if you're on some other form of social media that doesn't get a lot of the news cycle, pay attention that's probably something you should put in there. See if there's anything going on in the food safety that needs to be addressed. A lot of people think, well, I'm just going to look for something that is grown safely. I'm going to go to the farmer's market and I'm going to buy organic produce. Hasn't had anything on it. I know it's going to be better for me, and that'll be good. In a lot of cases, it can be. But just because it's organic doesn't mean it couldn't be, having any of these other issues. I mean, there is no absolute in your food. A lot of organic materials use forms of manure or compost, or which could be a lot of different things in that compost, into your food supply. And with that comes potentially things like an E. coli that's in the manure of livestock, or it's not broken down properly in the composting cycle. And so it could still be there. There's no guarantee on anything. So I'm telling you, regardless where you buy it, it goes back to pay attention, see if there's anything out there, and always wash them. Cooking is also an option on some items. The last time I checked, though, I've never seen anybody take and cook their salad before they eat it. There's some things that just don't fall that way. But the good thing about most salads is that you can get to pretty much, because you're eating the roughage part, the forage of that, it can be basically pulled apart and really washed well before consuming. But cooking or high temperatures will do it. Like I don't remember of any problems I've ever seen with corn, because normally corn will be what? It'll be boiled, or it'll be cooked, or a lot of times you'll be canned or frozen. And all of those items there will kill almost any bacteria. So inherently, just by how you consume it, reduces the problems that you may find. It's really important because there isn't any farmer that I know of that takes this, does not take this particular item very seriously. The livelihood is to provide a safe, consumable, good nutritional food to its customers. And anything that disturbs that is not only detrimental to him, but detrimental to the public and the confidence. So we work all the time. We look at our regulators as making sure they do their job and getting by frequently enough to get by. Everybody worries about when the problem arises, but up until that, everything's fine. How many times do we check and on our food processors? How many times are we allowing them to recycle water? How many times are we looking at what additions to that water? Or is the water clean when they start? All these things, how often are these things checked? So it's an ongoing problem, and it's a building population across the world. And with that, we're going to need more food to service these number of people. And with that, we need safe food. And so we will continue to be diligent on the working side out in the field. And then on the processing side, I know they're working at it, because anytime you have your name wrapped around a food safety issue, it's not good for business, and it's going to hurt you. And if it hurts you, it hurts the growers that are growing for you. So we need to all look at this as a we problem, not a them problem. So until next time, stay curious.
Thanks for another absolutely wonderful episode of Agriculture in a Nutshell, Bill. I'm sure that all of our listeners very much so enjoyed what you had to say about food safety and how incredibly important it is to the ag industry and to just the general consumer's health. Make sure you always wash your food before you eat it. And also, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and always stay curious.